And hello again. This is your hostess with the mostest, Stone Thug, and you are watching our little blog, which is entitled "God, Guns, and Blood," and we are discussing or finished our discussion on why the South lost the war. Why the South lost the war. I had to have two parts because my light changed at the ending of the last video, and I want you guys to kind of keep a consistent thought. But to finish up what I was saying, slavery was an American institution. It was American as apple pie, and you have to wonder why the South, and why I would give this show the title, "Why the South Lost the War." And you have to think, how was it even possible the South lost? They seem to have had every advantage. In terms of loving guns, I don't think there's a part of the country that loved guns more than the South. In terms of religion, I don't think that we have the North can compare with the confessions and outward confessions of love for God as the Southern states. In terms of respectability and Southern charm and hospitality, manners, well, the South was a hard, tough act to follow. In terms of man, macho man, and manpower, and hard working, rugged, real men, the South was second to none. None in the world. I mean, the South really had that image of the pioneer man, the the manly man. They had that down. So what was it? What was it? Why couldn't they win? Why didn't they win the Civil War? Well, the way I look at it, they had a lot of things going for them, but the one thing that they didn't have going for them, and that one thing is the reason they lost the war, was the fact that they had everything but God. Everything but God. The South had it all. They grew the food. They had the land. They had rich folks. They had history, writers, poets. They had a lot of things. But they didn't have God. And you say, well, of course they had God. Stone Thug, you don't know what you're talking about. Why did most religious people there ever was? That's true. They were very religious, like a lot of people are today. But they did not know God personally. I'm convinced of that. And I say that skeptically, the way I'm saying it, if I could modify that statement a little bit. They knew of God. They talked all about God, just like they do today. But to allow inhuman behavior and diabolical sin of slavery and all that came with it, mixing up of the families, breaking up of the families, the brutalization of the men, the mind, I think that God had better and bigger plans for black folks. Because black folks have always been dominators, excuse me, in terms of the understanding of God and the love of God and the outward expression of God. And I think that God himself heard the cries of his people. And I think that the tide was turned. It was a 4-year war that ended up leaving the South broke and devastated and crushed to the point that the South to this day has never really fully recuperated. But you might ask, start with, why are we even talking about this? Why? You're a music person. Why don't you talk about your new music? Why don't you talk about something? Why is the South losing the war? Why is that important today? What do they have to do with the price of bread in this life we're living? Well, I'm going to say this. First, I want to say something I didn't say in the first half of this tape. I wanted to commend the police department in Tulsa for the excellent police work that they did in regards to tracking down those guys who murdered all those people in their front yards. I wanted to compliment those guys. And also, even in the Trayvon Martin case, the police department there, not the whole police department, but a lot of people didn't understand that the whole police department, overall as a whole, they did want to arrest Mr. Zimmerman. They did. They wanted to arrest him. They did arrest him, but they wanted to hold him on charges of murder. But the prosecutor, who probably knew someone who came from 50 miles away to talk to them and tell them not to prosecute this man, those are different people. That's a different situation. You can't fault the entire police department for not doing their job, because this guy was over them and he made those recommendations. Now, one of the police officers who did say that, tried to twist the words of the neighbor and say that it was Zimmerman who was actually crying out for his life, said he was quoting a neighbor. Well, that guy, I fought him. But the overall police department, I think, now that we have more information, even though Zimmerman, in my viewpoint, is completely guilty, as in most of the country, that most of the world who sees the case. I know there's a few diehard Ron Paul fans and other constitutional type people who are gun lovers who think that some kind of way they're taking this personal. It affects their rights to own a gun or take a gun, or they see this as a weakness of gun laws. They're seeing the case and taking the case personal, as though this kid needs 100 cards in the deck in order to be innocent. But the way I look at it, it's just simple. Just, one guy had a gun, somebody else didn't have one. The guy was 2 weeks over the age of 16. Wait, 2 weeks before that, or 3 weeks before that, he was 16 years old. He happened to be 3 weeks into 17, being 17. Some people say he was 6 feet tall. I don't care if he was 90 feet tall. He was a kid. He was a teen. You know kids. You were a kid. You have kids. And if this guy, somebody had a gun and somebody didn't have a gun, well, I think that the Stand Your Ground law, which I love the name, by the way, Stand Your Ground, but I think Trayvon is the one who needed the law. He needed to have a gun because he's walking at night. Somebody's creeping up behind him and taunting him and looking at him and following him in the dark. I think he needed the gun. He needed to start shooting. Not the guy that had every advantage, stalking him, seeing him, waiting on him, a predator, and then taking a gun and then shooting him. So I would love to think, like Morgan Freeman said in the movie Shawshank Redemption, when that guy was fighting for his manhood inside of the prison when they were trying to rape him, and Morgan Freeman said, well, I want to tell you that he fought and he got away. I want to tell you that. Morgan Freeman said you couldn't say it. I would love to think that this kid who's 16, just turned 17 years old by 3 weeks, fought this guy who was 10 years older than him, 100 pounds bigger than him, with a gun. I would love to think that this kid fought to the death and at the end got shot after fighting this guy, after breaking his nose and getting him down and making him scream for his life. I would love to, oh man, that would be such an epic ending. What a way to die, like a warrior, like a soldier. I would love to think that, but alas, we know it wasn't that way. The voice was the kids, as it should be. And the big man with a gun, who's 10 years older, who saw him first, was the bad guy. I don't know. You can look at it any way you want to. If you see anything different than that, then, well, you got some kind of pair of eyes on you. But nevertheless, my compliments goes out to the police force for wanting to arrest him. And my compliments go out to the Tulsa police force who cracked that case very quickly and professionally. I love that. Love that. Love good police work. It reminds me of what happened the first time the Twin Towers were bombed. Remember, the Twin Towers were bombed and they found part of the Ryder truck, 3 blocks away. It kind of makes you wonder. If it's true and it wasn't a conspiracy, it's some hell of a FBI work. And this police department needs our love and thanks for doing great work. But anyway, that's what I believe. The South lost the war because they did not have God on their side. And in spite of the outward appearance, like the Pharisees and Sadducees before them of long ago, in spite of the appearance of righteousness, in spite of the appearance of togetherness, in spite of the look of success and happiness and beauty, like in the movie Gone with the Wind, which I recommend all you folks see it. Great movie, great epic. In spite of all that, the South lost the war and they needed to lose because what they were doing was inhumane. It was inhuman. It was ungodly. And it rotted the very foundation of what right and justice stands for. And the reason I mention it is because even with this shooting that just took place in Tulsa, even with the Trayvon Martin case, I believe that the South, through legislation, is still trying to win that war that they lost. I think it has tied into every situation we have, including the unjust laws that are making all these new prisons come to fruition, where people are building prisons, investing in prisons to take the rights of criminals completely away once they're classified as a criminal. I believe that the justice system is fair, that you got to be committing a crime in most situations in order to get put away, even though statistically, and we know from our own personal experience, many people who get caught up in the system who are not true criminals, but they commit acts of disobedience for one reason or another. If it's smoking marijuana or doing something violent, I think jail is for violent offenders myself, and I think it's a place of rehabilitation. It's a sister of the church. It's a first cousin of a hospital. It's a place where people go and they are to be rehabilitated so that they can be accepted back into our society as better people, not go into a place clean and come out infected and infect the rest of the society that they come around. I really think we got some backward laws, backward rules when it comes to prison. But I believe that all prisons today are heavily influenced by the South still trying to win the war. I think they said, well, we can't win it one way, we'll win it another. And that's just how I see it. Anyway, I'd like to know how you see it. And I'd like for you to leave a comment and tell me some of the stories or things you'd like for us to talk about. I'd like for you to tell me what you think of this program, what you think could make it better. And if you want to leave a less than flattering comment, I encourage you to do so. But if you decide to leave anything racial, well, you must do two things. You must be funny, and you must leave an equally funny comment or joke about your own race if you're anything other than African American. Because if you're African American, you tell a racist joke. It's kind of backwards. I guess you have to tell a white joke too, or vice versa. But anyway, you got to be funny. No comments. You will be blocked if you have a unfunny racist joke or comment. And if it is, it must be equally matched by something from your culture and your race that is equally funny. If it's that, then we'll highlight your comment. I don't care. I'm a comedian, so if it's funny, hey, funny is funny to me. The show isn't for the light of heart or the sensitive, so I don't know how it might fare with some of my viewers, but keep that in mind. All right, this is Stone Thug, and thank you so much for another successful episode of God, Guns, and Blood. Next week, should I say the next program, I think we will discuss why the right hate Jesse Jackson and Reverend Al Sharpton, two of the famous subject matters of the right, which I'm a member of the right because I'm conservative. But I'm conservative in some things, and I'm liberal and aggressive, progressive in others. So I kind of like to think of myself like Jesus. Jesus was very conservative, and Jesus was very liberal. So we're gonna talk about music and stuff too. But all right, peace. Always love. Stone Thug out. Peace.